You got to be. Do black need to keep their music more? Do black people need? You can't. 5619. Black people don't own the idea of music. Nobody does. So no, I don't think. I don't think black people need to. I don't think you need to gatekeep music. I think you gotta let. You gotta. Why are you making all that noise? I don't want to hear all that noise. Put yourself on mute.
You can hear me?
Yeah, put yourself on mute. Um. So I don't think you can gatekeep music. I don't think music belongs to people. I don't. Not no music belong. Go live, Nicole. Oh, it ain't live here. So
Okay, we're live.
well, it ain't here. It ain't on my here. It's finally.
Okay. Give it a few seconds more. So it says a
I
minute.
said it is here now.
Oh, okay.
So like music ain't got a color on people's minds. Hey, Mr. 200 Tone Diggum. Hey, John Hill, Joy Hill. Thank you for joining to the invite. Thank you, Shell. Thank you all for coming in. So this is a show I do for KBLA Talk 1580 in Los Angeles. It airs on Sunday morning. But you can also download the iHeartRadio app and search for the J King Show. Hey, Marty. Fine, I'm getting ready to tape my radio show, but I gave her your number. She's going to call you. You didn't. Yeah, I told her that it has something to do with your publishing, the DeBarge publishing and stuff, and the part that you owned and a contract. So you can give her the the details of it. But I'm getting ready to tape a radio show for the next hour. So I'll call you when I'm done. All right, thank you. Yeah, no, I'll send you the link right now. All right, Marty. Marty DeBarge is a good friend of mine. Hey, Deb S. How are you? Hey, thank you, Joy. Thank you so much. Hey, Santina. How are you? If you guys share this link out, this is going to be a good, this is a good, so this is the show I do called the J. King Show that's more about history. And this is going to be a great show about C.R. Patterson. So if you haven't heard of C.R. Patterson, you're about to learn about somebody significant in history that that you don't know, but you should know. Is Mike here yet?
Hello, Jay. I'm here.
All right. Mike, do you know anything about C.R. Patterson?
No, I don't. Actually,
Right.
I'd love to, really
You're gonna-
interested in learning.
Yeah, you're going to get a chance to learn a lot about something. About true American history.
Yeah, I think those are your best shows. I love those about the most.
Yeah.
When you teach us something we don't know.
I think
we
I'm
need
going
to
to
know.
Yep, I'm going to do a series
Cool.
of true American history.
Cool.
Nice.
Hey, Vibe, how you doing? So we got about 4 minutes, you guys. So let me tell you guys how this works. Mike is the producer. He records the show and edits it and everything, and then he puts it up. So you can go to you can download iHeartRadio, the iHeartRadio app, and then search for J King, the J King Show, the iHeartRadio app, and then you can follow me and listen to all of my shows. But I'm also on KBLA Talk 1580 in Los Angeles. This show airs on Sunday. What time, Mike? It's 6:30 in the morning.
I just 7 a.m.
7 a.m.
confirmed.
7 a.m. 7 a.m. every Sunday. And but you can listen to it anytime you want to on iHeartRadio, following the J King Show. Matter of fact, it's up there first before up over at Tavis's spot. So, but I think you guys are you're gonna be amazed at this story. I think this is why I don't want Black history. I don't want Black history. I want true American history. I want America to tell the truth about her history. And so if America tells the truth about her history, it doesn't just sound like white people, because America isn't just white people. As a matter of fact, all the countries that exist in the world, America is the most unique, because if you go to Japan, who are you going to see? Japanese. You go to Armenia, what are you going to see? Armenian. If you go to Mexico, what are you going to see? Mexican. If you go to China, who are you going to see? Chinese. If you go to Africa, who are you going to see? African. If you come to America, who are you going to see? Everybody. Everybody lives in America. That's what makes it such a unique country. America has to tell her history based on that truth. And she does it. But today, I will. So, it's going to be a good story. We start at 6 o'clock. We do 2 12-minute segments, 1 9-minute segment, 2 4-minute segments, then we're out. So I hope you guys stick around, really get this story.
1 minute. Yeah, I'm gonna play some audio real quick. Stand by. Checking levels. The J King Show. I like it. Where's Jay? There you are.
Hey, T,
Hi, Jay.
hey, am I loud enough? Do I need to be up a little bit?
That level over here.
Hey, Kyle Williams.
You need to be louder, but that's me.
No, I can. I can do.
No. Nope. I got you. Don't change anything. It's
Hey,
me.
Barbara.
Da-na-na. Okay, Jay.
We got about 30 seconds. Hey, what's happening, nephew? How you doing?
All right, J King. We love it. Can't wait to hear. If you're ready, we're ready.
Ready.
Okay. Stand by.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, make it good for you. My name is J King. Welcome to the J King Show at KBLA Talk 1580. Today we got a good one for you. Tonight we're going to talk about a man whose story is extraordinary. A man that most Americans have never heard of. Yet his life represents one of the most extraordinary journeys in American industrial history. My name is Jay King. I'm the president and CEO of the California Black Chamber of Commerce. I'm the leader of the band Club Nouveau. I am a radio show host at 97.5 FM KDEE in Sacramento. On Mondays from 1 to 2:30 p.m., I do a show called Politics. On Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I do a show called Traffic Jam from 3 to 5 p.m. And on Thursdays, I do a show from 2 to 6 p.m. called Traffic Jam. Monday through Friday, I do a show from 8 to 10 a.m. on J King Network. You can find on YouTube or Facebook from 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Monday through Friday. And of course, I do this show at KBLA Talk 1580. Every Sunday, it airs at 7 a.m., but we tape it on Mondays and Tuesdays, okay? If you want to listen to a lot of my shows, all you have to do is download the iHeartRadio app and then search for The J King Show. And you'll hear this show. I'm sorry, Mike. Search for The J King Show, and you'll hear this show and other shows that I've done. Today, I'm going to tell a story of a man that most of you have not heard of. His name is Charles Richard Patterson. Most people call him CR. He was born enslaved in Virginia in 1833. He lived through slavery. I'm sorry, let me do that again. He lived through slavery. He survived the American Civil War, and he became a master craftsman. Then he became an entrepreneur. And eventually, he and his sons built what historians now recognize as the first Black-owned automobile company in the United States, the C.R. Patterson and Sons Company in Greenfield, Ohio. Let that sink in for a minute. Yeah. A Black man, former slave, 1800. When Americans talk about the birth of the automobile industry, one name dominates that conversation. Henry Ford, the man who founded the Ford Motor Company, the man who created the Ford Model T, the man credited with putting America on wheels and turning Detroit into the Motor City. But today, we have to ask a question that history rarely asks. What if there were another automobile pioneer, one who never received the same recognition, a man who built vehicles before Ford dominated the market, a man who owned a manufacturing company when most Black Americans could barely vote. Let me do that again, Mike. A man who owned a manufacturing company when most Black Americans could barely vote. A man born a slave who would go on to build the first Black-owned automobile company in the United States. Tonight, we tell the story of the company he built in Greenfield, Ohio. We are going to compare his journey to the rise of Henry Ford and the industrial machine that turned Detroit into the capital of the automobile world. And we will ask the difficult question. What's the difference between these men simply innovation or opportunity? So let's begin with two birthplaces. Charles Richard Patterson was born in 1833 in Virginia. He was born into slavery. He had no rights, no property, no legal protection. Now compare that to Henry Ford. Ford was born in 1863 on a farm in Michigan. Ford grew up during the Industrial Revolution. Patterson grew up during slavery. Ford inherited opportunity. Patterson had to escape oppression just to begin his life. So these two men would eventually enter the same industry, but they started from two totally different Americas. After gaining his freedom, C.R. Patterson moved to Greenfield, Ohio. And that's where he learned to build carriages, the most advanced transportation technology of the 19th century. Eventually, he partnered with a carriage maker named J.P. Lowe, a white man. And together they produced beautiful, durable, horse-drawn carriages. But here is what made Patterson different. In 1886, C.R. Patterson bought the entire business. And that's when he renamed, I'm sorry, let me do that again. And that's when he renamed the company C.R. Patterson and Sons Company. I want you to think about that for a moment. Think about the historical context. Just 20 years after the American Civil War, a former slave owned a manufacturing company in America. Factory, workers, products sold across multiple states at a time when most Black Americans were sharecroppers in the South. This was extraordinary. Around the turn of the 20th century, inventors everywhere were experimenting with motorized vehicles. And among them were men like Ransom E. Oldsmobile and Henry Ford. But the automobile industry at that time was chaotic. There were hundreds of companies that were trying to build cars, and most of them failed. But C.R. Patterson saw the future. So his company started the transition from carriages to automobiles. And in 1950, his company, C.R. Patterson Sons, created and released its first automobile, the Patterson Greenfield automobile, a fully functional American-built car built by a Black-owned company during the height of Jim Crow America. So while Patterson was building cars in Ohio, something powerful was happening in Detroit. Henry Ford introduced a revolutionary idea: mass production. So in 1908, Henry Ford released the Ford Model T. But the real revolution came with the moving assembly line in 1913. Cars that once took days to build could now be produced in hours. And then Ford lowered the price, and suddenly millions of Americans could afford an automobile. And that's when Detroit exploded into an industrial powerhouse. Factories, steel, rubber, glass, engines, and a huge amount of investment capital. You see, Gerald Ford, I'm sorry, let me go back. You see, Henry Ford had access to investors, banks, national distribution. C.R. Patterson did not. But C.R. Patterson's sons played a critical role in the company's survival, especially Frederick Douglass Patterson. You see, Frederick studied engineering at Ohio State University. And he brought modern engineering knowledge into the family business. So together, the Patterson family pushed forward into the automobile manufacturing. But unlike Ford, they did not have the massive factory lines. They relied on craftsmanship, the same way they did when they built the carriages. They relied on skilled labor. They didn't just put a car together, they crafted a car together. And they did it with determination. And here's where the comparison becomes uncomfortable. Ford's company received enormous financing. Banks trusted Ford. Dealers sold Ford cars nationwide. Suppliers worked eagerly with Ford factories. But for a Black-owned company like C.R. Patterson and Sons Company, the situation was different. Banks often refused loans. Dealers refused distribution. White-owned suppliers sometimes refused contracts. In other words, the automobile industry was not just a technological competition, it was also a racial one. And the system was not built for Black industrialists to win. I got a story for you, and it's a good one. Stay tuned right here at KBLA Talk 15. We'll be right back. How was that, Mike?
I'm going to like soccer. I'm going to give you some extra time here.
Why?
If you want to go 13, you can.
No, I'll go 12 because I'm going into the next. I'll
Okay.
go to the next one. So
At some point, you got +2.
At some point, what?
You got +2 minutes.
Okay. So I can do 14 right here. Are you saying?
If you'd like, or save it for the 11.
Okay.
9 + 2, 4 + 2. Yep, we're good. Thanks, Jay.
So I'll go 12 again.
Okay.
All right. The Jay King Show at KBLA Talk 1580. We're talking about American history, true American history. This is one of the reasons I don't like to call our history Black history, because we are the true Americans. We really built America. But the racisms, bigotries, prejudices, and biases that existed back then and continue to exist today it just multiplied. But this man, C.R. Patterson, he was unwavered. So eventually mass production made it nearly impossible for small manufacturers like C.R. Patterson to compete. Even a lot of the white-owned car companies disappeared. But not C.R. Patterson's son. Nah, they adapted. The company shifted from automobiles to trucks and buses. These vehicles served schools and businesses across the Midwest. So the company survived into the 1930s. An incredible run for a family business that began with a man born in slavery. Today, when we teach about automobile history, we hear about Detroit. We hear about Ford. We hear about assembly line. We hear about mass production. But rarely, if ever, do we hear about Charles Richard Patterson. Why? Because history oftentimes remembers the large corporation and forgets the pioneers who fought the uphill battles, the ones who really laid the groundwork and the foundation for industries like the automobile industry to actually survive and to grow and to develop and build and become colossal. Two men helped shape the automobile era. One became a global legend, the other became a footnote. But their stories reveal something powerful about America. Opportunity has never been evenly distributed. Yet, even against overwhelming odds, innovation will find a way. And that's why the story of Charles Richard Patterson deserves to be remembered, spoken about, learned about, talked about. A former slave, because that's what he was. A manufacturer, because that's what he did. An automobile pioneer. A man whose legacy is finally being rediscovered. C.R. Patterson. Today, most history books tell the story of the automobile through a few famous: Henry Ford, Walter Chrysler, Ransom Old. But many of the early innovators were left out of that narrative. Now, historians are only beginning to rediscover these stories. Museums and scholars are starting to acknowledge the place of C.R. Patterson in American industrial history. But for decades, his legacy was largely looked over. You see, he lived through slavery. He survived the American Civil War. He became a master craftsman. Then he became an entrepreneur. And eventually, he and his son built what historians now recognize as the first Black-owned automobile company in the United States. But if this story is true, if a former slave built one of the earliest automobile manufacturing companies in America, why don't most Americans know his name? You can blame it on America being a young nation, but you also have to say it was a deeply divided nation. And we see it still today. We see the division still today. So just imagine if that division has closed up as they say it has over these years, what it was like, how divided it was. Millions of African Americans lived in slavery. They had no rights, no ownership of their own labor, and no control over their own future. One of those enslaved children was Charles Richard Patterson. He was born on a plantation owned by a white slaveholder named John Patterson. And like most enslaved people, Patterson's early life is not well documented. Slavery erased records. It erased names. It erased identity. But somehow, somewhere along the way, Patterson gained his freedom. Some historians believe he escaped. Others believe he was granted his freedom. What we do know is that by the 1850s, he had moved north to Greenfield, Ohio. Now, imagine that. Imagine that moment. A man born enslaved, walking into a small Midwestern town, trying to build a life in a country that had just spent 2 centuries exploiting people who looked like him. Because freedom did not mean equality. But Patterson had something way more powerful. He had skill. He had determination. In Greenfield, Ohio, Patterson learned the trade of carriage building. In the 1800s, carriages were the automobiles of their day. They required woodworking. They required metalwork. There was leather craftsmanship. There was engineering. There was precision. And that's how Patterson ended up partnering with a white carriage maker named J.P. Lowe. J.P. Lowe saw the unique gift that C.R. Patterson. He saw the value in him. When J.P. Lowe saw C.R. Patterson and his work, he didn't see a black man. He didn't see a former slave. What he saw was a craftsman. Somebody who had wonderful hands, who understood the work, who put quality in everything he did. So when C.R. Patterson and J.P. Lowe started connecting with each other, they decided to form a company together, a business. And they called the business J.P. Lowe and Patterson. So we're talking about the 1800s. And this type of partnership alone was rare in the late 1800s. A black man owning part of a manufacturing company during a time that was so volatile, so bigoted and biased that it was unheard of that a black man could have a high position at a company, let alone ownership of. And he was treated in a fair and equitable manner by his partner. Their carriages became known for the quality. Their carriages became known for their elegant design, for their durability. Customers knew that when J.P. Lowe and Patterson built a carriage, it was built to last. They knew that when it was going to be delivered, it was going to be elegance delivered to them. They understood and respected the craftsmanship of the two partners. But success did not come easy. Racial prejudice followed Patterson everywhere. And still, he kept building. He kept producing. He kept expanding. Got greater, greater, greater craft. America can hide her history, but she can't run from it. You're tuned into the Jay King Show at KBLA Talk 15. We'll be right back. How was that, Mike?
You're on mute, King Mike.
I'm good. Thank you, Jay. I did say that was good and right on time.
Perfect. What is so what? How many minutes I have?
You have 9 minutes if you'd like.
9 minutes? All right. You ready? You ready? Right? Okay. It's
Yes,
the
sir.
J.
Sorry. Sorry, I'm not used to muting my mic. So, yes, I am ready. I hear everything you're saying. You're good to go, Jay.
Okay. I got 9 minutes, right?
Yes,
To
9.
It's the J. King Show at KBLA Talk 1580. We're talking about C.R. Patterson. C.R. Patterson is an automobile manufacturer. Even before Henry Ford, you just don't know it because that history's been hidden from you. That's why we're here. That's why we do these shows. This is a show about true American history. So in 1886, J.P. Lowe, who was the partner to C.R. Patterson, decides to retire. And by deciding to retire, that left a decision that they had to make. Do they close the business or does C.R. Patterson take it over? C.R. Patterson had been saving his money and he bought the entire company. And when he bought the company, when he bought the company, he renamed the company C.R. Patterson and Sons Company. C.R. Patterson and Sons. And that's where his sons took their expertise, their knowledge, and they started building a business with their father. C.R. Patterson, a black man born in Virginia, 1833, born into slavery on the plantation of John Patterson. And like millions of black Americans of that time, C.R. Patterson's life began under the brutal system that defined the American South before the American Civil War. But something about C.R.'s life would change the direction of his destiny. At some point during his early adulthood, he gained his freedom. Now, historical records differ on exactly how, but by the 1850s, he had left Virginia and moved north to Greenfield, Ohio. Now, if I am a betting man, I'm going to bet that he ran away to Ohio because Ohio was part of the Underground Railroad. When you got to Ohio, it was free, a free state for black folk, for former enslaved, for runaway slaves. But if history will tell you, they're going to tell you that his his former slave owner, felt some empathy one day and decided to set him free because that's how they tell those. So Greenville was a small Midwestern town, and it was far removed from the plantation system that CR had been born into. And for a lot of formerly enslaved people, moving north meant a chance at independence, a chance at economic opportunity, and a chance for safety. But as I said, freedom didn't mean equality. And Black Americans in the 1800s faced enormous barriers. They had limited access to capital. They faced discrimination in employment. They were always facing some type of social hostility. And C.R. Patterson was no different. He faced those same obstacles. But C.R. Patterson possessed something powerful. He had mechanical skills. He had business ambition. And He partnered with J.P. Lowe in the 1870s. And so it's less than 16 years later that he becomes full owner of the carriage company that they started together. But by the turn of the 20th century, transportation was changed. And inventors all across America and Europe were starting to build these motorized vehicles. And CR was right there in the hunt. He and his sons understood that the automobile industry was going to push them out. That's why they got into bus business. That's why they started to build other types of vehicles, motor vehicles. They got out of the automobile industry because the banks weren't going to allow them to prosper. They were going to shut them down, and they knew it. We were still in a post-Civil War America where a black man owning a manufacturing company was almost unheard of. And I'll be damned if I let one of them build something from my bank. You see, when we talk about what America is today, and we talk about her biases and her prejudice, her racism, bigotry, they're way different than what our parents and grandparents, our great grandparents faced. Was a different kind of world. And sometimes when I talk with white folk and they don't understand the extraordinary situations that we've lived through, and we don't believe them, we don't trust that they are telling the truth, I'm here to tell you, they're telling the truth. They didn't know. They don't know. America has been a great liar, not just to us, but to all of her citizens. That's why it's important that we take out time to learn our own history as Black folk, but with the understanding that our history is American history, that America can't talk about America without talking about us. She can't stand up and pound her chest without talking about us, because we built her. Whether she tells the truth about it or not, the truth will eventually come out. You can't hide it. You can't run from it. You can't bury it, because the truth is. And what we're talking about today is the truth of a great American who was a former slave, who did something that most people found unbelievable and find unbelievable today, even as we speak. From 1919 to 1927, Henry Ford owned a newspaper called the Dearborn Independent. When we come back, I'm going to tell you all about it. You're tuned into the Jay King Show at KBLA Talk 15. We'll be right back. Hey, Sean Rayford, what's happening, sir? Good to see you. I can't respond when I'm in the middle of it because Mike is taping. So Only when I get a break. So, Mike, how was that? How many minutes do I have?
That was good. Thank you. Very good. 4 minutes and 4 minutes left.
4 minutes and 4 minutes. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Let me give it. So 4 minutes. I'm gonna stop at 36. Hold on. Give me 55. It's the J. King Show at KBLA Talk 1580. I'm going to round this thing up, but I want to tell you some information. I want to give you some facts. Like I said, from 1919 to 1927, Henry Ford owned a newspaper called the Dearborn Independent. In that paper, Henry Ford published a series of articles blaming Jewish people for controlling banks, the media, and world events. The articles were later compiled into a book titled The International Jew. And the book spread worldwide and became extremely influential in the far right and anti Semitic circles. Most disturbingly, Adolf Hitler admired Henry Ford and even mentioned him in the Mein Kampf. And Ford reportedly received a Nazi medal in 1938 from the German. Henry Ford later issued an apology in 1927 after lawsuits and public backlash, but the impact of those writings had already spread globally. And while Ford is sometimes praised for hiring Black workers earlier than a lot of other companies, the reality was more complicated. At Ford Motor Company factories in Detroit, Black workers were often assigned to the hardest and most dangerous jobs, concentrated in foundries and heavy labor, rarely promoted to supervisory roles, kept out of the engineering and management positions. So although Ford hired Black workers, the opportunities within the company were highly restricted. In the early 1900s, Ford hired a lot of Black workers partly to undermine white labor unions that were striking. White union leaders often excluded Black workers from membership. So Henry Ford just exploited that division. By hiring Black workers while fighting unionization, Ford could weaken labor organizing and their efforts, if not anywhere else, at his plant. And what this did was create a bunch of tension between white and Black workers, something that a lot of historians say helped delay labor unity in Detroit for decades. You see, Detroit became the center of Black industrial labor, but not ownership. So during the Great Migration, I'm sorry, let me go back. During the Great Migration, hundreds of thousands of Black Americans moved north looking for factory jobs. Detroit became one of the largest destinations. Ford factories hired thousands of Black workers, which helped build Detroit's Black middle class. But here's the critical difference. Black workers were allowed to work in the auto industry. They were rarely allowed to own companies in the auto industry. That distinction is crucial when comparing Ford to pioneers like Charles Richard Patterson, whose company, C.R. Patterson and Sons Company, actually attempted to manufacture automobiles. Black labor was welcome. Black ownership was not. You're tuned into the J. King Show at KBLA Talk 50. We'll be right back. How was that? How was that, Mike?
Excellent. Yep, I got it. 4 minutes there on the mark.
Okay.
Will you go 5 here?
Go 5?
Yeah, if you'd like it.
All right. Ready? You ready?
Yep. Yes, sir.
It's the J. King Show with KBLA Talk 1580. If you want to follow my shows, you can download the iHeartRadio app and then follow the J. King Show. iHeartRadio, go to your app store, download the iHeartRadio show, and then uh, follow the J. King Show. Before we get out of here, I want to just give you another surprising fact about Henry Ford's company that involved worker surveillance. To qualify for Ford's famous $5 a day wage, workers had to pass inspections by Henry Ford's sociological department. Investigators visited workers' homes and judged cleanliness, family structure, alcohol use, lifestyle habits, assimilation into American culture. So, immigrant and Black were often scrutinized the most. In other words, Ford's company didn't just control the factory floor, it attempted to control workers' personal lives. Henry Ford was late to recognize labor rights. Henry Ford fiercely resisted unions longer than most major manufacturers. And the conflict culminated in the Battle of the Overpass when Henry Ford security violently attacked union organizers outside a Detroit plant. Henry Ford didn't officially recognize the United Auto Workers until 1941, years after other auto workers had done so. So here's the irony. Henry Ford became one of the most famous industrialists in world history. A man who anti-Semitism, a man whose racial disparity and dislike is on display. A man who made sure that there were separate and not equal for all his workers to move up. And meanwhile, we have the story of Charles Richard Patterson, a formerly enslaved man who built an automobile company, who had workers of different races, different colors, different backgrounds, who built a company despite the racial and financial barriers that lived well into the 30s, from the 1800s, but who has remained largely unknown for generations. One man built a global empire. The other built a pioneering company under enormous racial barriers. History remembered one far more than the other. Henry Ford helped transform manufacturing and transportation in America, no doubt. But the deeper story of race, labor, and power in the automobile industry is far more complicated than the simple Ford invented the modern car industry narrative. You might want to go check out CR Patterson. He's something. You've been tuned into the J. King Show at KBLA Talk 15. I'll see you next time.
Got it, Jay. Thank you.
So,
Good show.
thank you. All right, you guys. So that was the hey Jay, I just want to send much love and watching and doing a great job. God bless you. That's Marty DeBard. Thank you, Marty. All this love is waiting for you. I appreciate that, Marty. So, Mike, did you learn something new? Did it make you want to go? Thank you, Lorraine. Did it make you want to go find out more about C.R. Patterson?
Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting. I'm a history buff. I appreciate it. I like American history. The American Revolution on KVIE was interesting to me.
Yep, it is. Well,
You
we
see that?
we got it. What? No, which one?
The story of the American Revolution. It was like 10, 12, 100 parts from what? Ken Burns? Yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah, I love Ken Burns.
It went all the way over to like the Mississippi River and all the factions up to Canada, into the Canada province. Yeah.
Yep.
South Carolina.
Thank
The
you, Stone.
influence of South Carolina.
Thank you, Lori Downs. I appreciate you. Thank you, Jana Marie. Without C.R. Patterson, there is no Henry Ford. I don't know if that's. I'm not saying that there's no Henry Ford without C.R. Patterson. I don't think that's true, Jana Marie. I just think that C.R. Patterson should be spoken about the same way you speak about Henry Ford, because C.R. Patterson. Thank you, cousin. C.R. Patterson was absolutely in the beginning of the revolution and where the automobile revolution, and where a lot of white automakers couldn't survive, who had more opportunity, more access than he continued to thrive. So yeah, I think C.R. Patterson was just you got to take your hat off to him. But I don't say without C.R. Patterson there's no Henry Ford, because that's not the truth. C.R. Patterson and Henry Ford both started their apprenticeship at the very young age. That's what was so amazing. Well, except that C.R. is older than Henry by 30 years. So that's the difference. But CR was but he was a brilliant man. You got to realize that this is a man born into slavery. I want you to think about that for a minute. So if you're a slave in America, you can't read, and if you can read, it's at a low level. You're not because somebody can get killed. Even you could be killed. So no, it's a comp ticket. How can you play the difference between a comp ticket and a VIP ticket when it's a comp ticket? It had to be it was very complicated. It's very complicated. And I mean, you can't get along. Just imagine how much money he had to save, and how thorough he had to be as fiscally in order to keep his company alive. because he doesn't have the float that these guys have, because he doesn't have a bank to back him. He doesn't have investors to invest in him. He doesn't have anybody backing him. This is just him and his sons. So that's what makes him such a special conversation. I mean, you have to really, you have to read about him, and then you have to kind of take a step back and then think about historically where he is. Where as a black person, you have no rights, because we know that by World War I, by the end of World War I, 1919, if you're a black man wearing a uniform coming back from war, you can be burned to death in your uniform. Because white men are telling you, take that off, you nigger. Take that uniform off, boy. You don't represent us. Now, they just won World War I. They've just been recognized by the French government as heroes. Coming back into this country, and this is at the same time that C.R. Patterson, so you can only imagine what racisms, what bigotries, what prejudices, what biases he had to face, and how he had to eat it to stay alive. So when we tell these stories, we got to tell them with the truth. We can't just tell them with the pretty frosting. This man survived. His son survived. And why did his company only last through the 30s? Because at a certain point in time, I don't care what company, there's not a company on the planet that don't need credit from a bank, that don't need money from a bank in order to grow, in order to sustain itself, in order to build, in order to be financially foundation. So he's an impressive. And this is why I try to tell black folk all the time. If you know who you are, if you know your history, you will never feel less than. I don't walk in a room feeling less than anybody. If I walk in a room with a bunch of white men and I'm in that room, the song that's playing in my head is Bad Motherfucker. Bad motherfucker, bad motherfucker, bad motherfucker, bad motherfucker, bad motherfucker. Because I feel like I'm a bad motherfucker to be. I'm not in that room because I'm a nice guy or because somebody liked me, because I'm equal. I'm in that room because I'm a bad motherfucker. And you got to recognize that about who you are. And I believe that that's why C.R. Patterson was able to stand out in that room, because he was a bad motherfucker. Jay, would be so interesting to know if his family has continued to share his legacy to this day. I'm going to. So I walk in it, and I tell you, I encourage you to walk in your greatness. And I'm not one of those people that feel um, like we are superior. I'm not one of those people that say black is superior. No, um, we have greatness in us just like anybody else, and there are people in every race that have greatness in it. It's just, and I say this to people all the time. Um, if if you are angry, you elevate who you are over somebody, then that tells me that if you were the power, if you were the race that was the power, you'd probably be a lot like white folk are. See, if you can justify how you would act if you were in power, you are just like white folk. So that tell me maybe it's not what color they are. Maybe it's what position they have. So I don't make black the most powerful over everything. the most powerful over everything is humanity. Humanity has to step up and speak out for itself. Humanity make everything equal across the board. That's what humanity does. That's what I'm about. So I would never say that without C.R. Patterson, there's no Henry Ford, because I don't believe that, because Henry Ford was doing what he was doing. There were a bunch of men that were doing what they were doing. It's that C.R. Patterson was a black man who was a former slave who was doing what he was doing in spite of the obstacle, in spite of the treatment, in spite of the hypocrisy. He continued to build. He was a bad motherfucker. He proved it to you every day. So, all right, you guys, thank you. Thank you all for tuning in.
All right, Pop, you did a good job.
Bad motherfucker, bad motherfucker, bad motherfucker. Thank you.
You did a good job, man. I knew you was on TV. Something said, go CJ on TV.
Maybe I'll talk about it on Kings in the Morning tomorrow, but you heathens, you guys ain't ready to learn.
His son.
Huh?
Our son, Frederick Douglass, played football for Ohio State football team. He's a Buckeye.
Yeah,
in 1891. Right. And he had as many patents as his dad.
Yeah, he was a
he was a bad motherfucker too.
Yeah, he bad motherfucker.
They King a bad motherfucker too. Shit. They King been fed damn near all of LA. He done fed them people, man. I'm telling you.
Thank you, Stone. I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys. Hey, download the iHeartRadio app and follow the Jay King Show, and you guys can hear some of the other shows. I've got some good shows. By the way, Mike, I got to tell you, Shirley Shepard, who listens to Kings in the Morning, she said, our show is one of the best sounding shows on KBLA. So thank you for that.
It's a good show.
No, she said best sounding quality wise.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah. Hey, you should hear it. I pull the music out of the podcast, but there's some really good music on the air there.
Might be getting it in, huh?
Yeah, Mike.
I feel it.
He said,
I'll tell you what, here, I'm looking at really footnote right here, Frederick. See our son, Frederick Douglass. It says here, according to crpatterson.biz, Frederick was interested in politics and he served as Greenfield's delegate to the annual Ohio Republican Party caucus.
Yeah.
He's a Republican.
Wow. Yeah. Because Republicans were different, but that's Republicans. That's where Abraham Lincoln was Republican.
Yep, that's right. He was a Republican. Also served as an alternate delegate to the 1924 Republican National Convention, which took place in Cleveland during the Warden G. Harding administration.
Hey, Jelena, when is it going to be up, Mike?
I like to say ASAP.
Okay.
By Thursday for sure.
Okay. All right, you guys, I got to get ready to, it's almost 7 o'clock. You know, I'm in bed by 8:30.
Okay.
And you know, I got to watch Star Trek. I'm watching, Mike, I'm watching the original Star Trek.
Are they beaming you up?
Hey, no, but Captain Kirk, man, I love Kirk, man. He's cold. Kirk is so cold. But you know who else is cold-blooded?
Who, Scotty?
No, Spock, man. Spock is his macking is, but Scott, you know, but I like Scotty too. But man, hey, if it's a girl out in the world,
Scotty,
Kirk gonna put something on it. Hey man, they went to this one place yesterday, right? And they was gonna make him fight to the death, and they sent the girl in his in his room to give him to feed him to get him ready. And man, then he was out in the world with her, you know, whatever. And man, he touched her on her shoulder, and she had never been touched before. Man, Kirk put that thing on her. Next thing you know, she got her tongue down his throat, and then the people come. We see you, and then he's choking her to death. And Kirk is like, "Leave her alone. Do it to me. Kill me. I'm the one." And then, what is this that you're doing? You're showing compassion for someone else. And then, so when they took the death grip off her, she loved him more because he was willing to die for her. I said,
you got some good Wonder Bread like you, Pop.
Kurt, man,
He got some of that J. King Wonder Bread.
What's happening, King?
J. King got some.
Hey man, and why they shirts look like little baby shirts? Like they shirt them. I said, but Kurt's, hey man, the more different they look, the more Kurt want to get off in them.
So Jay, who's your favorite character on that show? Because there's quite a few.
Yeah, I saw the Capone. Yeah, cuz I saw him. What'd you ask me, Brian? What'd you ask me, Mike?
Your favorite character on there? Because there's quite a few. There's obviously Nimoy. There's Shatner.
I like Kirk. I like Captain Kirk. That's my dude. Yeah. But I like Spock too. I like the coolness of Spock. But I like Kirk's mag hand is cold. You know,
that's fun.
Yeah, Kirk got a cold mag hand. And when you do shit that Kirk tell you not to do, or if you start questioning Kirk, basically say, "Motherfucker, this is my shit. Do what the fuck I tell you to do." That's really what he's saying, but he's saying it, you know, in a scripted way. He always tell him, you know, and then every now and then he'd be like, "Man, I apologize. I ain't trying to gangster rock you."
That's funny.
Remember when he hit the green lady?
Yeah. What? I don't know if I got to that one yet. I know the one you're talking about, but I haven't got to that one, man. But he got it. They have the one that we was yesterday was just wild because they was fucking him up from everywhere. And then somehow, he beat up all these people, and that's how they got free. Because he beat up all the people that he figured something out. Kirk always figuring some shit out. All right, I gotta go, man. I gotta go shower, shampoo, and shine so I can get the.
All right, make it rock.
All right, well, in here.
That sounds like a lather symptom.
Great job, everyone.